what you both said about, you mentioned governments and how it's interesting how governments in different countries are so inconsistent with their advice. So you mentioned, Michelle, about how when you're pregnant, governments say kind of any alcohol, and then that brings me into the UK, because in the UK when you're pregnant, you're told by your doctor actually 1 glass of wine a week is okay.
We're told the same in South Africa.
Exactly. And actually, my friend, talking about vaping and pregnancy, I'm not saying that people should take up vaping when they're pregnant, or that I recommend people taking low risk drugs or any kind of drug at all. But a friend of mine, she was addicted to smoking, and she was actually quite a heavy smoker. And then when she was pregnant, her midwife was the one that suggested she vaped instead, because she's addicted to nicotine. She loves nicotine. And the midwife was the one that said, why don't you try vaping? We think it's safe enough in moderation. And then she took up vaping, and the baby was healthy, no problems, and she stuck to the guidelines. But it's just funny because in most countries that would never be even an option. But in Britain, you're allowed, very small amounts of alcohol, you're allowed small amounts of vaping, it's actually recommended as opposed to the alternative or the worst alternative. It's recognized it is a safer alternative, and there are other options. It's not just, quit or nothing,
It's quit or die, right? And that's really important,
exactly.
giving people that option, because when you don't give them any option, you say it's either this or death, this or you lose your baby, this or
Exactly.
permanent disability for your unborn child, you're going to have some number of people will say, okay, I'm not doing anything for the next 9 months, nothing. But then some people are just like, I'm just going to keep on doing what I was doing, without knowing that there was something they could have done that would have been massively less risky, massively less harmful to themselves, to their unborn child. And in the United States, we do recommend transdermal nicotine patches for pregnant women who cannot quit while pregnant. So we do recognize that nicotine, while not risk-free, particularly during pregnancy, is still an option for women who would otherwise just continue to smoke, which is going to have such a much larger deleterious effects compared to non-combustible nicotine administration. That's also, P.S., easier to control your dosing. And I'm not saying that necessarily with vaping, but with the patch, with gum, you can really titrate yourself. You can really meter out how much nicotine you're getting, to know if maybe it's whatever your guidelines provided by your doctor, if this is the max you can have while pregnant, or during this period of your pregnancy. It's much simpler.